Welcome to the Blue is the New White podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Got an awesome guest. His name is Stephen Christopher. Some of you may know him, some of you may not, but Mr. Christopher, works in marketing. He has a marketing company geared towards the skilled trades industries. He's had an incredible journey. It sounds like after talking with him, just a really great guy, super inspiring, and you'll notice that once you listen to this podcast. But he has a lot of great insight on what the skilled trades are and what they mean, and how he's come to discover what kind of success can be had in these types of industries while working alongside owners and other skilled trades people. So that being said, I hope you guys enjoy this week's episode. And just a reminder, we don't monetize this show. We don't run ads. We don't make any money of any kind. So the best thing that you can do for us is rate this episode. Hopefully you give it 5 stars, but be honest, and share it with your friends. Recommend anybody that you might think may be good on this show, and just go from there. All right. So appreciate you all and enjoy this week's episode. Today we have Stephen Christopher joining us. Thank you so much, Stephen, for coming on the show and for being here. And why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience?
Awesome, man. Josh, thanks, brother. Really appreciate the time today, and this is going to be a lot of fun. I know it will be. So just a real short background on me. I've been an entrepreneur since I would say a kid. Started my first business when I was 14, doing like mobile car detailing. Had a couple other companies, went through the mortgage industry crash, lost a mortgage company, went into debt over $100,000. Really learned a lot about entrepreneurship through that 2008 crash. That, interestingly enough, has been very helpful going through all of this COVID-19 stuff. But yeah, so I had a mortgage company, went through that. Went from making money to not making income at all within about 72 hours, over $100,000 in debt, and kind of took a look at what skills did I learn when I had the mortgage company and what could I do, because I need to have some sort of an income and some sort of a revenue. So I took a job making like nothing for a little bit in the interim. But then when I took account of like, okay, what skills have I learned? One of them was digital marketing. So in 2009, I started my first digital marketing agency and grew that with a partner until we no longer thought the same way. In 2014, we parted ways. And in 2014, on the heels of that, I started WIT Digital. It was formerly called WIT Digital Marketing. We did a rebrand in like August 2018 because, quite frankly, Sequus was really hard to say. It was hard to spell. People didn't understand it. And WIT is just a much, much better name, better brand. And, really since then, since I founded that in 2014, right from the very beginning, we had a couple home service companies as clients, and just really enjoyed working with them. And through coaching from some of my mentors that run really big digital marketing agencies, they said, pick a niche, like just pick something that you can be really, really good at. Pick something that you enjoy the people, pick something that you can help people, and pick a resilient industry. Because from my previous experience with the mortgage industry, that is not a resilient industry whatsoever. And I just had no idea. I thought the money was going to be there forever. And so it kind of checked all of those boxes. I really enjoyed working with home service company owners because, quite frankly, they get taken advantage of way too much. Digital marketing agencies aren't educating them properly. They're overselling. They're not doing the right things. Not as much anymore, but they used to just bank on the fact that most home service company owners were tradesmen to begin with, grew really good at that, started a business, never really understood or fully understood the marketing side. And so they would just be like, okay, yeah, sign up for this package for whatever, SEO and paid. And yeah, it'll start to work in 12 months and just call me in 12 months, but don't worry about anything. We're doing a good job for you. And that pissed me off. I didn't like it. And, both of my parents were very much like hardcore, kind of working class, work at one place, 35 years, retire. And I just always thought, I was like, this is kind of like my parents. And so let's support them. So it worked out really well. And now during coronavirus, the whole industry resilience thing is definitely paying off, back to that advice that I got. But yeah, so essentially what we do now is we're a digital marketing agency that specializes solely in helping home service companies grow and market their business and build their brand within their geographic area.
Oh, that's awesome. So you mentioned that you wanted to help businesses and support businesses that were resilient. So I think that home service is a really great option for that. I talk a lot about that on this show. And even through all this COVID stuff, I know that a lot of even home services companies and things like that had to do layoffs, but not nearly as much as, a lot of other industries out there and with what's going on. So I'm curious, first off, I want to know what your perception of the trades were when you were, let's say, in high school, and then we'll talk about how that relates to how they've changed and how they are now.
Yeah. So in high school, my perception was that a plumber is kind of a plumber, right? Like, I don't know, a plumber fixes toilets and hot water and stuff. And it's a relatively simple concept, right? That this has been my past understanding of it. It's like, okay, well, how hard can a toilet be? I didn't understand it. Like, I walk into the bathroom, I use the toilet, I push the lever, and like goes away. So I never fully understood exactly how it worked. And I grew up in a house where it was always do it yourself. It was over 100 years old, and my dad fixed everything on his own. So he was very much the mentality of, hey, why would I pay somebody $400 to put in a hot water heater when I can go to Home Depot and get it for whatever, $100, and then put it in myself and use my entire weekend and my son's entire weekend to do it? A lot of that was just, money in the way that he was raised too. But so I guess since I grew up that way, I never really fully understood how much of a skilled trade it actually was, right? Because I grew up kind of, being able to do some of the basic stuff, but I was only able to do that on our house that we knew everything about, and we knew where every, piece of piping was and every electrical outlet was and all of that stuff, because we had spent years doing that. So my understanding was just kind of that it was just another job that somebody did, and it was probably a pretty dirty job, and one that I generally did not want to do myself long term.
Did any of your counselors or teachers or anything like that in high school ever talk about the trades or give you any insight into what it meant as a career option?
No, not even close. I mean, my thing was like what I got pushed in, growing up in high school, even middle school, was get a really good education, get really, really good grades, try to get a scholarship, go to college, get a job, work there for 35 years, try not to be super miserable. That's just part of it. And then graduate and be done with it. Yeah. Which, I lasted 1 year out in the real world with a real job after college. And it was the most miserable thing that I've ever done in my entire life.
What'd you go to college for?
I started with engineering, mechanical, electrical, computer engineering. About 3 years in, I looked around and I was like, wait, these are the people that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. Like, I don't get along with this group of people. I need something more like social and fun. And it just didn't feel right. So I switched to finance and economics. When I graduated, I was a broker at Merrill Lynch for a year. And it was not for me. Yeah. And it wasn't so much that it was just the finance piece or Merrill Lynch. It was just the whole thing was not for me. Like working 9 to 5, having a boss, having a schedule, being told what to do, having to spend 5 years doing the same thing until you work your way up to be a manager just because you've been there for 5 years. Like that was not for me. But no, there was never any talk about the trades. It was just never, I would say probably until, I don't know, really within the last 7 or 8 years was the first time that I really started to hear people talk about like, hey, intentionally go into the skilled trades. And at first I was just kind of like, okay, well, it's another job. It's probably somebody's parents pushing them into something that they don't want to do. But then as I started to understand the industry a little bit more, I was like, holy cow, this is actually, I mean, this is real. And then when we started working with bigger and bigger companies, you start working with $100 million a year plumbing company, like it's very, very real. And then I just started to grow my appreciation for, kind of like we had talked about a little bit before the show, like the amount of labor and skill and training and care and stuff that goes into it. It's nuts. Like, where else are you going to find somebody that can physically fix something, identify a problem, physically fix something, but also in the same token, be able to go into somebody's home, their most private place, and show empathy and care and build rapport in the matter of, 1 or 2 minutes, and then physically, like a lot of times, go fix something. Like it's impressive.
Yeah, it's definitely a skill set that's very, very valuable, and people just don't know how valuable it is. And I think that your narrative is just all too common. Everybody is taught to, that basically college degree equals success, and it's never really taken into account that different people define success in different ways, and that's kind of what my thing was is, I mean, we all have developed our perceptions of the skilled trades over the years, right? I mean, when you picture a plumber, you picture, the ass crack, you picture the wrench, you picture the grease, and maybe you even picture some missing teeth or whatever, the common stereotypical depiction of a tradesman. And it's the same thing with a mechanic and all of that. But nobody is really, and that's not even the point. Even like when I was in high school, it's not like people were outwardly bashing the trades, saying, "Oh, all plumbers are stupid," or "all electricians are couldn't hack it in college." But I think what might even be worse is that it's just almost ignored. It's never even talked about, because I didn't know. I've said before on this show that, I didn't know what my dad did for a living when he started turning wrenches until I came to start working for him. I didn't know what an HVAC technician did. I didn't know cooking equipment technicians existed. We do a lot of restaurants here in Phoenix and our other branches, and up until that point, I knew I ate at restaurants, but it never would have crossed my mind that somebody actually has to fix and maintain the equipment that cooks and stores the food. You know what I mean? And so we get older, and we those of us who understand the skilled trades can actually start to look around the world as we know it and realize that it is a direct result of the skilled trades. Everything that you see, everything that you hold, that you use in your day-to-day life that you typically take for granted, the electricity running through your outlets, the water running through your faucets, the car that you drive to work every day, or even if the taxi that you drive to work, or the Uber, whatever, it's all a result of the skilled trades. It literally manufactures the world as we see it today. And that's a hard thing to explain especially to kids, to young people. And it's often, we don't develop a true appreciation for it until we understand it. So at what point do you think you started to really understand it? You said in the last 7 to 8 years?
Yeah. I mean, at my first agency, we had a couple like plumbing and, local home service companies as clients. And that's when I really started to understand, okay, wait, this is a business. Like, this is a real business. This isn't, Dan who wakes up in the morning and goes and gets in his unlogoed truck and, just randomly happens to have plumbing work to do. Like, this is a real legitimate business that's run very professionally. So that's kind of when I started to recognize is, 6, 7 years ago. And then now that this is all we work with, I'm like blown away. I mean, some of these guys that own these companies, they're some of my, my close friends, and I'm calling them for business advice. But yet 20 years ago, they started out, in their dad's company as a plumber or an HVAC guy turning a wrench. And they're just super smart. And that's something that they learned, right? They didn't know that initially. I guess here's actually what I'm trying to say to people that are out there that are thinking about the trades, going into the trades. And if they're saying, oh, well, I don't know how to run a business, or I don't know these types of things, that I might need when I look up to people in the trades that are doing, running $10 million companies. I don't have those skills. I got to go to college and learn that, or I just don't have it. I'm not cut out for it. None of these, well, you can give your input on it, Josh, but none of the guys I know, these guys didn't go to school for a business degree. I don't think I have one single friend that did. And so it's all learned. And so you can easily learn it. Just like, I could learn to be an HVAC technician if I really wanted to, and I was passionate about it. But I guess that's my point, is that if it's something that people are considering going into this, like, you can learn all the other stuff. But there's a ton of opportunity in it. And I mean, these are big companies. I mean, yeah. You might not know it. If you drive around your neighborhood, or if you drive around like a really nice area of town, there's a good chance that there's a decent amount of like guys or women that own, big home service companies that have the biggest houses in the neighborhood. Hell of a lot bigger than some of the doctors that I know. Yeah. And they don't have debt, and they don't have all the school loans, and they have a better quality of life. Like, I just really started to understand and have an appreciation for it relatively recently in life.
Yeah, no, and I think that happens quite a bit, especially, when you're in a position like you, where you work with these people on a daily basis, and you really come to understand the type of intelligence that they have, kind of to your point earlier, about how they're really smart people. It's like that adage, right? I think it was Einstein: if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll live its whole life thinking that it's stupid. And really, I think at the root of it, that may be the narrative that we hear quite a bit in the trades, and the perception that's developed because of it. When in reality, some of these guys, and believe me, I got, I think 40, little more than 40 employees right now, and some of these guys, men and women, are the smartest people I know. I mean, just the things that they're capable of, I'll tell you, I envy it, because it's so evident, but you don't know it until you see it. And then once you see it, even though you don't understand it, it's there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, then you start talking about this industry from a resiliency standpoint, right? Think about at what point in the future, I don't think we can calculate by years, but we can certainly calculate compared to most businesses. At what point in the future will your plumber be a robot? It's going to be a long time when you compare it to everything else. At what point in time will your HVAC technician, because every home is different, every way to get in is different, the installation job is always different. There's too many variables for it to be anytime relatively soon. You got long haul truckers that are getting replaced by robot trucks, and factories obviously for a long time have been doing it. This is going to be one of the last industries that's, I guess I would say, massively impacted by technology, right? I mean, it's cool the things we're doing now, like VR goggles for HVAC training and stuff like that. That's super cool that we're doing that, and maybe that'll even get some of the younger generation interested, right? Like, oh, you're telling me I get to learn how to do this in VR goggles? Like, yep. All right, cool. But yeah, resilient industry. And so I don't know, man, there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah. And I'm glad
and
I'm glad you brought up the resiliency of the industry, because it is important, and people don't really understand. Because I do talk a lot about how, if you know a skilled trade, you can do it anywhere, right? I mean, it's always going to be in demand at some point. People always have to be able to store their food. They always have to be, people have to be at a comfortable temperature, and people are always going to have to cook their food. There's a lot of these home services that, if you know the skill, you can take it anywhere you want to go, which is a type of resilience. And then the other type of resilience, we talk about is through an economic downturn or a pandemic like the one that we're seeing now. Again, I know that it affected some companies in the industry, but not nearly as many as other companies across other industries. And then, to your point, it's hard to automate something that is so meticulously done by hand. It's until we actually have like humanoid type robots, right, with opposable thumbs, it's going to be really hard for them to braze pipe, and it's going to be really hard for them to wire a complete electrical panel, or lift crane units up to the roof and plumb everything in, or how whatever. Like you said, I think it's going to be one of the last industries that's truly affected by that type of automation, which should speak volumes, because people go to college for the security, right? At the end of the day, you look back, and that's what our parents taught us, is that, you go to college because it's security. That degree is your security to get a job and keep a job and hold a job. Even if you don't like the job, it's secure. But in my mind, I know a lot of college graduates that are jumping from job to job, career to career, and I don't know how secure that is compared to my friends that, turn wrenches for a living and have been turning wrenches for quite some time with no signs of slowing down, stopping, or pivoting, as the kids say.
Yeah, that's a word I've heard too much of lately.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a ton of opportunity in it. And I mean, there's a lot of talk right now, like a lot of the stuff that you're talking about is how do we get more people into the trades, right? Because you have a lot of men and women that are in their mid to late 50s that are kind of like on their way out. But that's they were a majority for a long time of that workforce, and you have a lot fewer people coming in. And so, I mean, you want to talk about intentionally choosing an industry where there's an opportunity to, like, as an individual, make a lot more money. Man, if I was young again, I would seriously consider it. I'd start when I was like, even in high school, like learning as, going and doing whatever I could to start learning, right? And then you can start making money really, really quick. You become really good at it or really great at it. You're going to have companies dying to hire you. It's like a no-brainer now. I mean, but obviously, we're a little bit older now. We're looking back. It's like what our parents would tell us, like, you go do that. It's going to be really good. We're kind of the old people now. But it's true, right? It's there.
Yeah. You choose your direction in life. And that's why I like to speak to, Generation Z. And look, millennials, nothing against millennials. I'm a millennial. I understand it. But at this point, we're all, we have our families, right? We're set in our ways. We need this income. And when you start anything, whether it's the trades or something else, you got to start at the bottom, which means a reset of your entire life, your income, the things that you need to support your family. So not to say that it's ever too late in life to learn a trade, but, your priorities change as you get older, and you have to make that decision for yourself. But what you've done, I think is one of the next best things, which is to serve those in the trades, specifically, through marketing, like your company does. So you deal with these people a lot, right? People in the skilled trades and business owners and stuff like that. Do you see any shared characteristics, between them, just overall as people?
As people?
Yeah.
Yeah, there are some. I mean, drive and work ethic is huge. Kind of that mentality of, it's like my grandfather and my dad always would say it too, like, start a job when you finish it. Like, I always see that in this industry. Whereas, me as a kid, I would kind of start 15 projects and I would work on this one for a little while, and then that one, and then this one, and then I wouldn't finish 12 of them out of the 15. And that's just, I don't know, I'm ADD entrepreneur. Maybe that's part of what I got. But in this industry, I see a lot of that. Like, it's okay, well, if you start it, just finish it. It doesn't matter if it's 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. Like, you just work until the job is done, and you do it, and you always do it right. That's definitely something that I see consistently in that industry is work till the job is done, do it right, have pride in your work, provide quality work. You can always learn how to do something. And I think maybe that goes back to the whole business side, right? A lot of these men and women did not start thinking they were going to own a business. they just thought they were going to be, they thought they were going to be a plumber or an HVAC person. But as they started to need these other skills, they were willing and open to learning them. So this ability to be open to learning new things. And maybe that comes from the fact that no job is ever the same. There's always some variable in everything that, that you guys are doing out there in the field. Maybe it comes from that, but just always being open and willing to learn and knowing that you can do it, not worrying about, okay, this might take a day, a week, a month, a year. I'm not worried about it, but I will figure it out and I will understand how to do it. I got some of that from my parents. I think I rebelled a little bit in that one because like all of my grandparents were super strict. My parents were kind of strict. So I pushed against it, and I still do things. My wife, she picks on me all the time because like I do start projects at home and sometimes finish them and sometimes not. But that's something I've always admired from that industry.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's actually the first time that I've heard that answer, but it rings so true because you're absolutely right. I mean, we have a saying here that says, like, don't stop until the job is done. And whether that's on a micro scale, for each individual call that the technicians run, or whether it's on a macro scale for, look, I'm not going to quit working on this business until, we've taken over the entire industry. And so now you're talking about mindset, which I've seen some of your stuff on LinkedIn, and I think that's right up your alley. So let's talk a little bit more about mindset as just an entrepreneur. You said you've started a couple companies now. Is that right?
Yeah, I think four companies that I would consider like real companies, offices, lease, employees, payroll, that type of thing.
That's
impressive. I've had a couple of little play ones in there that, generated revenue and stuff, but I didn't have to keep them going.
So what's that mindset that you have? What keeps you going? I mean, with these, and I'm left to assume that some of those businesses worked, some of them didn't, and whatever led you to where you are today, but you seem to keep going, keep starting over, if you will. I don't know how, the timeline of when you had these businesses, but what's the mindset that keeps you moving forward through all that?
It's, a lot of it's just curiosity. Like what's possible, right? So just thinking about like, okay, what's possible? And then this is a good way to think about this. And this is helpful. Even I talked a little bit about this during COVID, and a lot of people have heard this. When you're like 60 or 70 or 80 or 90 and you look back, and I do this exercise, like I literally picture myself, like I'll close my eyes. A lot of times I'll do it after a meditation, sit there for a minute, close my eyes, and imagine that I'm literally 90 years old, laying in a hospital bed, nearing the end of my life. And I'll like kind of physically in my mind, turn around and look back at my life and say, okay, what am I proud of? And what do I wish that I had done differently? And are there any themes there? And the recurring theme that I generally get is like, be curious. What is fulfilling to me? And am I following my calling and my passion? And look, a lot of people talk about passion, follow your passion, and holy cow, like, I don't know if I can cuss on this show, but I certainly would have right there. Like it's just, passion is this whole thing that just is it just screws with your mind if you're not careful. Like, oh my gosh, what's my passion? Like, dude, I've been looking for my passion for 40 years and I still have no freaking clue exactly what it is. But I know the things that make me feel good and that make me feel fulfilled in the moments. And I just kind of follow those. And, these overarching themes come out, but just reeling it back in a little bit, like looking back and saying, okay, what's something that I maybe wish I would have done differently? Or what's something that I wish that when I am 90 and, I'm surrounded by whoever, some family, some like grandkids, great grandkids, whatever it is, that I can say, hey, I did this over the course of my life. Here is like a core lesson, like be curious, or, you know, never give up. Just what are those things? And so those are the things that come up, like be curious, never give up, keep trying. It's never as bad as you think it is. Like there's always a positive, or there's always a learning opportunity in each experience. And so those are the things that really drive me. Like I'm not driven by money. I mean, in the beginning, my first company, hell yeah, I was like, dude, I'm 24 years old. Like I'm going to make some bank. But it really rings true. Like it's not about the money. And I have friends that are selling. I have two friends right now that just sold in the last year outside of this industry, but over 200 million is what they sold for. And I'm talking to them and they're like, yeah, like I'm going through this grieving process and I really don't know what I want to do and how am I getting fulfilled? And these are really smart, like heart-centered entrepreneurs. So I think it's just that being curious and not giving up, right? Like, do I want to look back and say like, man, I'm so glad that I sat on the couch for weeks on end when I had some money and didn't have to work? Hell no. No freaking way. Like it might feel good in the moment for a little while, but man, when you fast forward in your life and turn around and look back, I don't know. I would find it hard to believe that anybody could truly tell themselves like, yep, I want to feel good about that. Like I want to feel good about working for 20 years, getting a bunch of money, and then sitting around and literally doing nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree 100%. I really same mindset, you know, on this side of the table. I thrive on the sense of accomplishment. You know, I can't lay my head on the pillow at night knowing that I didn't accomplish something that day, you know, because otherwise I won't be sleeping. I'll be up on the laptop. I'll be finding something to do, some way to improve, some way to push forward. But I like a couple of things that you said. And number one, yeah, we don't have a language barrier on this show. So, you know, speak your mind, sir. And two, I love what you said about passion, because this is my thought on it. And this is, I put this in my book too, because it's very, very important to me. We hear this narrative a lot, right? Follow your passion and you'll never work a day in your life. And the problem is that most people don't know what their passion is, or if they do know, it changes, right? My passions are completely different now than they were when, you know, I was 18 years old or 20 years old or 25 years old. I mean, they change all the time. You know, you grow with your surroundings, with your family, with everything else. I mean, my priorities completely changed when I had kids. You know, it didn't become about the you know, house on the edge of a mountain bluff anymore. It became about, you know, how can I make this little girl happy, you know? And so what I like to say, especially when talking about the trades, because let's be honest, and you know, mentioned it before, sometimes the work in the trades can be dirty, it can be hard, it can be grungy, grimy, nasty, you know, and not to say it always is and that it will always be that way, because you can move up the ranks, but that's how I started. You know, my passion isn't working on fryers and getting all greasy and nasty. And, you know, I mean, I went through 3 different dryers when I was in the field because I kept drying my clothes that had grease on them and it would ruin the dryer, you know. But the point of that is that you can find the passion in what you do. No, I don't like working on fryers, but I love to help people. You know, I love to see the look on their face when they say thank you, 1,000 thank yous, you know, for getting me up and running on a Friday night, so I can continue to operate my business. I can continue to pay my employees and feed my family and feed their families. And, you know, the biggest thing is my passion was being able to build something bigger than myself, you know, in a company. And I could only do that if I turned the wrenches first, you know, and turning the wrenches can be a metaphor for, you know, whatever. But, you know, I think it's important to note that as your passions evolve and change, you can mold your circumstances around it to fuel and those passions. And if what you're doing doesn't fuel the passions, that's when you know it's time to make a change.
Yeah. Dude, you just said one of the most fucking brilliant things that I've ever heard. Well, that I've heard a lot of, rarely do I hear people say this. In how I interpret it is finding fulfillment in the moment now. Like we're always thinking about what can I do that will get me fulfillment, right? And we think about creating this business, I mean, even a family, getting married, having kids, whatever that is. Like, when I get here, I will find fulfillment. And so we spend this time thinking about starting a business. And then when the business gets going, we use all these loose terms, right? Like, oh, when the business gets going, I'll be fulfilled. Well, the business never gets going, FYI. It's always evolving. So it's about finding fulfillment in the moment. And I mean, I have deep conversations that are very much on like the woo-woo level of law of attraction and energy and vibration and stuff like this. But basically, I don't care what you believe, if you believe that stuff or not. If you find fulfillment in the moment, you will ultimately live a much more rich and fulfilled and abundant life. So no matter what you're doing, no matter where you are, when you can learn to start finding fulfillment in those moments, when you can find fulfillment cleaning out a fryer, because you attach it to helping somebody, that's fantastic. Like, then you just live a much more fulfilled life, and then you will have and attract and create more experiences in life that will allow you to feel even more fulfilled. Like, that's such a huge, important point that so few people get and so few people talk about. Anyway.
Yeah. It's hard to articulate. It's hard to articulate to people because, it's not really ingrained in us when we're brought up. It's always, what you're doing, not why you're doing it, which has admittedly changed, ever since Simon Sinek wrote it down, but which is great because there's a lot of truth to it. And, it helped in even opening my eyes, but it's always one of those things that's kind of ever elusive, right? You're just searching for an answer, but you don't know the question kind of thing. Yeah. And so I think it's important, especially when you're talking about, a profession that may be looked down upon or perceived in a way that, doesn't really do it justice because you're not looking in the right direction, because that's something that I've talked to a lot of tradesmen and tradeswomen, and to your point, none of them actually told me that the best part of what they do is the money. And we all know that, it's been on all the headlines now over the last couple of years, how much money can be made in the skilled trade. So it's not a secret. Everybody knows that, as a plumber, just a regular technician, you can make, $100,000 a year, no problem with experience under your belt and stuff like that. And that's great. And that's a lure, and that's a great lure. But with these people that I've talked to, they all say the same thing, that their passion is helping people or fulfillment or, however the best part of their job is their ability to help somebody else, which is just remarkable because when you look at it in that context, that's not something that anybody else points out, right? Nobody says, go be in the trades because you can make a real difference, in one person's life, in your community's life, in your, in the country's life, in the world's, it's one of those things that people can't see through. They can't see past here. And it's tough to explain.
Yeah. You're spot on. Like there's not much else more to say about it, right? Like it's a choice that we all have to make, and we can make that choice as young or as old as we would like. We can make it as easy as possible, or we can make it after massive, massive amounts of, failure and regret and eye-opening, we'll call them opportunities, but, eye-opening things that happen in life. I mean, even getting to like near-death experiences, right? And that's when you see a lot of people change is, near-death experiences or something major happens or they lose a loved one. That's when a lot of people choose to change. But the great thing about it is that you can change and you can allow those things to happen now. And it's a hell of a lot less painful if you allow them to happen now. It's just that oftentimes there's not a big enough, carrot or a big enough stick. And so we're like, well, we'll just kind of keep it going. Like things are good, no big deal, no need or necessity for change. Yeah.
Or they wait to on this day, I'm going to make a change, like a New Year's resolution, for instance, which I have sworn off all New Year's resolutions because I refuse to wait to make a change. you know,
Yeah.
and I'm a big advocate of that. Like, look, if you got a New Year's resolution, make it a Tuesday resolution. I mean, you know, it makes no difference. And I see it all the time, you know, across all different industries and a bunch of different people. And it does take reminders from people like you know, to help people, you know, kind of get back to, because they know that. Everybody knows that. It's just they have this kind of mental block, you know, I think that prevents them from remembering it. So I'm thinking you do a lot with the skilled trades now in what you do. So in a way, the skilled trades have contributed to your success. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah. 100%.
So I'm curious what your definition. I'm really curious about you because, you know, you're a very inspirational guy. You got a lot going on. I'm curious what your ultimate definition of success is.
Awesome question. It's changed, much like the, you know, passion and stuff. It's changed over the years. It used to be a little more based around like boxes to check. Like, okay, I have a company, check. I have an income that comes in without me having to physically be present at that company, check. You know, family, check. But it's changed a lot and it's gotten a lot simpler. And really, success now to me is just being able to wake up each day and find something to be fulfilled by, and to be able to say that I had a good day today. And, you know, that's relatively easy a lot of days. It's a little harder on days, you know, like when COVID hit, like that was a little bit more challenging, but there's still something in every day that I can find, even if it was little. Like, I don't know, I got to eat a Snickers bar today, and normally I don't eat Snickers bars, like, and it tasted really good. That literally could be a success, and that could be the highlight of my day. But it was a highlight, and it was fulfillment, or I was able to find fulfillment in that thing. Or being pushed up against something that is a really big thing, like the COVID stuff, or when my mortgage company went under, and say, okay, this feels really terrible. But deep down, I know that at some point in the future, I will turn around and look back and say, that was the lesson that I learned in that, or I learned something out of it. So success right now for me is just being able to be open to finding fulfillment. And something that I've been working on a lot right now, because, you know, I've spent the last 2 years training my leadership team and building that team at WIT, so that I'm not very involved in the day to day, and the company is actually growing faster and it's performing better without me there than with me there. So I've been spending a lot of time on like, what can I do now to serve that company, this industry, and just others in general. And this whole like thing of success lately has been a lot about what can I do for somebody else instead of what can I do for me. So when I was younger, success used to mean what's kind of in my little world and my little life. And now it started to become more about what impact or what thing can I share, or how can I inspire somebody else to have a slightly more fulfilled or slightly better day. And that is much more, that means a lot more around success than, you know, anything. Like, dude, I mean, you know how it is. Like, I could go out, like anybody on the face of the planet, if they wanted like a Ferrari, you could find a way within about a year or two max. Like, it wouldn't even take that long. Like, you can find a way to get a Ferrari legitimately. But ultimately, I think most people that did that would realize, oh, wait, completely not what I wanted. And I think oftentimes we have to go somewhere down that path and experience some of it to some degree on our own to find out that that's actually not what success is. I think it's okay to have all that stuff. Don't get me wrong, man. I love sports cars and going fast and cool houses and vacations. And, but that's a byproduct of success.
Yeah. Yeah. No, very, very well said. Very profound. I like your definition of success. It's one of the best I've heard actually on this show, and I appreciate you sharing that. So, to my ultimate point, would you say that you needed a college degree to achieve that type of success that you're talking about?
I can't even answer with a straight face. So let's put it this way. I got a degree from a very good school. I had a great time there. Here's the one thing that I use from college and I use every day. And it was the most important class. And it was the only class that I actually went to every one. And it was how to use Microsoft Office, Word, and Excel. And that skill, that was worth it. Like that was worth the whole, whatever my college degree cost. Like, man, I'll tell you one thing, I still use that all the time. But no, there was zero need whatsoever for that. Like, and quite frankly, I won't go too far down this path, but now in hindsight, I'm 39, I'll be 40 this year. Looking back, my parents did the best that they could, right? As all of our parents do. They raised us the best that they know how, the best that to their abilities. Well, looking back, I was very entrepreneurial from a young age. My parents, knowing what I know now, if I could tell them how to do things a little differently, it would be encourage me to follow that path much earlier in life. Because I started like real companies in high school. And when it was time to go to college, it was like, okay, like shut down your little fun play toy over here, like time to enter the real world. And that whole world was bullshit. Now they didn't know any better, but if they would have encouraged me a little bit to be like, hey, look, we don't know how to do this entrepreneur thing, but you're really, really, really passionate about it and really good at it. We're going to support you in whatever way we can. Life would have been different. And so, hell no, I didn't need a college degree at all. And, I do use Excel really well nowadays. So I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's a good answer. And to be fair, and I think I may have said this before, most of the time our parents do what they think is best for us. The problem is sometimes admitting that they may not know what's best. Of course they want what's best. I want what's best for my kids, just like my parents wanted what was best for me. And, I was fortunate to have parents that really didn't push a college education on me. I know that, in some households that's like a must. This is what you do. And I didn't have that. So I'm thankful for that, in hindsight. But, and that's why this perception thing is so important, right? Because you're not just trying to instill it in the minds of young people, right? Because young people can make their own decisions to a point, but you also have to, articulate it intelligently enough to convince the educators and the parents and the counselors and these people that may have that same mindset, that probably have that same mindset, that, hey, you know what? This might not be the way, not for everybody. Of course, some people, yes, but certainly not everybody. And I think you're a prime example of that, based on your last statement.
Yeah. I mean, take it from me. Look, I've never wasted any of my life, right? Like all of the experiences have made me who I am, and I'm thankful for those. But take it from my learning experience that you could shave off 5 or 10 years of your path. If skilled trades, for example, if you're good at it, you like it, if you enjoy working with your hands, not having to interact with people a whole lot, right? You're not sitting in a call center or doing, like I was trying to be a stockbroker. You're not having to interact a whole lot, but you enjoy working with your hands. You don't mind being outside, being where it's hot. Like, you like to be kind of independent. You like money because there's plenty of that. Like, yeah, that's a great option. And we're going to start to see less and less of, professional services, right? Attorneys, accountants, CPAs, even financial world. Like, you want to talk about truck drivers' jobs getting replaced by computers and AI? I mean, legal, accounting, financial services, that's coming real quick too, because, there's a lot of stuff that attorneys do that can be done better by a computer that can calculate all of these different scenarios and spit out like, hey, here's the most valid answer. Now it still needs to be looked at by a human and stuff like that. But a lot of those things that were seemingly the places to make a lot of money are not anymore. Like it's here. It's like the pendulum swung way back into the trades. So yeah, just, start to follow your heart, right? Like do what you really enjoy. If you're great with your hands, man, geez, go. I don't know. You probably have a good recommendation, but like, I don't know, go to a plumbing company and be like, hey, you got any internships? Can I work here for like a month? Can I follow somebody and just understand more about what's going on? Just take your future into your own hands and follow that passion, or at least that curiosity and that interest. Because who knows, maybe you go and you work with a plumbing company for 4 weeks and you're like, yep, worst thing I ever did. I hated it. At least now.
Yeah.
Or maybe, maybe you love it, man. Like I did tons of manual labor and stuff when I was a kid and I loved it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think that's good. And Stephen, I've taken up a lot of your time, so I think this is a good point to wrap it up. But before we go, I'm curious if you have any advice for kids out there. Let's just say, high school students about, searching for their success, their definition of it.
Oh man, we could do a whole show about this. Yeah, I guess let's end with something like this, which is we have this connectedness to life. I'll call it that. And what I mean by that is, we have this intuition, right? So we have these feelings, we have these callings, we have these things that pull us, we have these interests. And that's a real thing. That intuition and those feelings are real. And they're there for a reason. And when we start to listen to those and we start to follow them, it's where we start to get into this like fulfillment and passion and excitement about life and what it is that we're doing. And so often when we are younger and we're mostly kind of under our parents', control and teachers and education, and we're able to be more influenced because we just don't know as much, we can tend to bury those things or not listen to them or not realize that it's actually a real thing. But it is. And so I would just encourage young people, like, pay attention to what those things are and be curious and explore those. And, like I said, look, if you've helped somebody or if you've helped your neighbors do some manual work or some yard work, or you followed a plumber around for a couple of weeks and you hate it, well, all right, probably listen to that. But if you're miserable sitting, behind a desk in computer class, but yet you're just doing it because your parents want you to go to college, and you feel this like deep calling to do something else, or this huge resistance down that path, like listen to that. That's a real thing. And just find a way to have more conversations with like your parents and those people that are influential in your life, and just be open to saying, hey, you guys might not know, and I don't know, but like, I just feel called to do this or try this. Like, can you help support me in that? And when you start to have grown-up conversations at a young age with grown-ups, like, they're very open to that type of stuff. But I guess that's it, man. Like, intuition and those gut feelings and those callings, like, those are real, and those lead us into correct directions. Even if the next thing isn't the right thing, it's a path, it's a dot on the path to the right thing. So follow that stuff. I mean, I wish I could tell myself that. If I could go back and tell my younger self that, holy cow, man, like, the ideas and the feelings and the thoughts that I had when I was young, like, I would have done a lot of different things. But I learned that, and now I get to experience it and maybe help somebody else do it sooner.
That's awesome. Stephen, thank you so much. Where can people find you?
Yeah. So me personally, you can find me pretty much anywhere on social media, like Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. It's under Stephen Christopher. I should be probably the first one to pop up. And then if you have questions about like marketing from, especially if you're a service company and you just want help, you just want some guidance, and just want to talk about marketing so that you're kind of know if you're on the right path or know if you're getting taken advantage of or know if you're getting good results or even how to work with your marketing company, more than happy to talk with you about that. You'll never get a sales pitch from anybody at WIT. Like, you know that we are a marketing agency. If we end up being a good fit to work together, that's great. But if not, you'll never get a sales pitch from us. So you can find us at witdelivers.com, WIT delivers.com. Reach out in any way there. Facebook, website, phone call, doesn't matter.
Awesome. Stephen, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, absolutely, Josh. This was a blast, man. Thank you for having me. And then also thank you just for what you're doing in the industry. It's awesome.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.